I'm very honored to be speaking with Joe Hyams, the CEO of Honest Reporting. Readers of my blog certainly know a lot about honest reporting, but let's just get a quick rundown. Can you just explain to us what the purpose of honest reporting is and how it started?
For sure. So first of all, thank you for the big honor of hosting me on your illustrious blog, and keep up the great work. Delighted to share the field with you, and by that I mean our work being to monitor the media for inaccuracy and bias against Israel, to maintain journalistic standards in the way they are covering the region, and to try and assist the journalists, in fact, speak about in improving their coverage of news from Israel in ways that maybe they've not had access to, or help and assistance in getting to the bottom of stories that I think has been the source of some of their bias until now. Honest Reporting began really and continues as a volunteer grassroots community. Large, 150,000 plus subscribers who respond to our work here in the engine room, finding those examples and stories, and our opinion at times, trying to make sure that we're calling the media to account, as well as trying to shine a light on aspects of stories that didn't make it to the mainstream. And we do it with a small team here as a not-for-profit based in Israel, but also an American 501c3. And we continue day-to-day monitoring with a small team of editors, as well as a small team of those of us on the road, educating, helping people understand the issues at play that often come up in the news, and that often are used against Israel unfairly in criticising her actions. We're here to put a stop to that and encourage better reporting overall.
Great. We were speaking before about Media Central, which seems to be a really unique initiative of honest reporting. So can you describe that?
Yeah, I should probably explain how the concept began. Working with the media, assisting them as a concept, is kind of counterintuitive to most ears who understand that honest reporting has worked to really critique and challenge and take to task and campaign against journalists or media outlets who have shown either their true colour through agenda-driven journalism, or have been sloppy and calling for corrections. I realised from my advertising background that if you really want to get to the heart of a solution, in our case improving coverage of Israel in the news, so you have to ask yourself, what do I want to achieve, not just what do I want to say. And if we look closely at the reason many journalists perhaps fell short of meeting their own objective of covering the story, on closer inspection it turned out they were either misinformed, had poor access, had misconceptions about Israelis, Israeli offices and ways of doing things. Some of the simpler things that you would think were a given, the service provisions that you would expect perhaps a country to afford visiting journalists, they told us were lacking. And we, as a communications industry, felt, well, if they just had the facts and the materials, everything would be rosy. So we kept churning out, the white papers and the positions and the facts and the stats, and it didn't make a difference to coverage. And Media Central was born of my consideration of the fact that maybe they just need the simple stuff. Maybe we just need to be a mensch to those visiting journalists. Maybe we need to be the nice guy who, instead of confronting and affronting, actually says, we don't have an agenda here either, other than to enable you to be the best journalist you can be. And if that means that you need a ride somewhere, and you need translations, and you need a cameraman for the day, but you need to know where the finest restaurants or laundrettes are, we can help you with that. And it doesn't have to be politically charged, because I was seeing a lot of the hate-filled media expression through cartoons, and a lot of the vitriol that would come through substandard journalism was often clearly a result of people's misconceptions of Jews, of Israelis, of things that we simply aren't capable of up close. And if only the media would connect up close with those families, those faces, those stories, those explanations, those reasons for messing something up even, but hearing it direct, giving them the access that the other side was always affording them, and so well, maybe would be a step towards preventing poor journalism, which of course is better than cure. So I want us to be out of business on the honest reporting side of things, let's say 5 years from now, and we should be trying to get there. And part of doing that, I realized, was asking what can we do to prevent the media slipping up either on those who would denounce Israel, placing stumbling blocks in front of them, spinning lies, faking photos, tripping them up. What can we do to help lift the veil on those efforts, as well as present a warm and welcoming true face of Israel, trying to assist in the very practical, sensible things. So today Media Central is connecting with over 450 of those resident correspondents in the last year, and through Defensive Pillar we were escorting and organising trips down there. Just getting up close with the personalities that are our side of the news was something they weren't receiving through the politically charged channels of government or elsewhere, and for sure were receiving the human face of the story from the other side. It will take a couple of decades to recover that ground, but that was the vision that I had, that we've been driving ever since 2005.
Do you see success from this initiative?
Very much so. I think that successes are measured not by the retractions and apologies that we're used to from Honest Reporting's work, but just in the personal exchanges. And I know that staff of Media Central working up close and really having a sense of duty to enable journalists to see Israel fairly and openly. When the media smile back and say yes to that forthcoming trip or tour, or just the thank you of, I appreciate you helping me get the story. The success isn't the story, and sometimes those stories still can be problematic, but we know they're not as problematic. We know that they saw human beings instead of monsters in the Israelis that assisted them, and enabling us to come across as humans and not monsters just buys Israel the time to pause. When someone says there was a massacre in Jenin, you can only arrive at such a libel when there's permission to consider that Israelis are really these unknown monsters. And the minute we have those human interactions, and you see the smiles and the thank yous and have a good day, and you agree to differ and go your own way, or you ask for that other angle on a story, that's the success. We became normal. And we shouldn't have to beg to be normal, but if getting to that point through our work is what's afforded us that, then yes, that's a success.
Has anyone called it etiquette washing or anything like that?
You just did.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for back on the just on the honest reporting side. I was just curious. I know that you have the massive mailing lists, and you have a lot of people that are willing to contact journalists and organizations when they detect media bias. Has any of the tactics shifted in more recent years more towards social media, towards Facebook and Twitter?
Yes, very much so, but the core principles remain the same, only faster. What do I mean? So our historic model was write a letter, write to the editor, express your voice. Editor receives a message, not just from you, not just from me, but from thousands, and editor gets message, and if not, why not? The means of getting that message in have changed, but the message hasn't. What has made a difference is the let's say the tipping point, at what point the media gets to know within moments, minutes, maybe an hour or two, that something's wrong in the way they've covered a story. I'm thinking back to a Financial Times Mideast correspondent 2 weeks ago, when Bulgaria considered Hezbollah to be behind the attacks that killed 7. And the tweet was, if I remember correctly, I can believe that Hezbollah and Iran were behind the Bulgaria bombings, though I wouldn't put it past Israel to pay Sofia to say anything. Where'd that come from? Put where that came from aside, it was such an instantaneous response to leverage the outcry of readers into the Financial Times offices that both the issue had been addressed, campaigned and corrected for by apology in our late morning, early afternoon. And it was amazing because really what happened was before the east coast of the US had woken up, the story had happened. That's a scary thing. You could really miss something. It used to take several days for those letters to travel through and stuff to happen. Now we're being caught in the reverse because myths and lies are spreading and reaching their tipping points also in almost real time. So we can be very proud of having use social media, using Facebook to mobilize, but our enemies are doing the same. And that cat and mouse game of always trying to improve the quality of our leverage of these tools is very much owning a greater chunk of our time going forward, especially for this year. It's not about using Facebook and Twitter, it's about asking what do they represent as means to leverage message. Because whoever has the edge in that field can and will win the minds and attention of the general population, who is the shared target in this unfortunate media war. That's not to say that we're playing the same game if we're not trying to enforce our etiquette of version narrative on that population where the other side may be. We're trying to make sure that the narrative that's forced from the other side, be it stuffed teddy bears on top of rubble, be it doctored photos of any other kind, or be it simple unknowns, that the public understand that the game is so fast and fluid and without its journalistic rules that new media, social media, has to be taken not with a pinch of salt, but with a big pause button. It means you consume it, you press pause, you digest. Now Israel has spent the last 8 years moving from we're looking into it, we'll get back to you next month, through to we'll let you know in a week, through to we're working on that, we expect to have some kind of answer from someone somewhere shortly. And our role is to look at that social media environment and say, we've heard this too, and let's remind ourselves of the volatility of social media, and let's buy ourselves those next few hours to really get to the heart of that matter. So it's a double-edged sword. As fast as we can be, others can be fast, and we have to keep improving in that channel. But the mechanisms are the same. You're writing a letter to the editor. You're calling out as a consumer to the media owner and saying, your job was to bring me the story. The story that's reached my eyes is not the scene that happened. That's a failing. And be it Twitter, Facebook today, or who knows what tomorrow, the approach will be the same. I would like to add that as good as we get at doing what we do as a community, and when we're between conflict times and it feels like the pressure is off, to remind ourselves of what the now head of Al-Qaeda said some years ago, that we're in a fight, we're in a battle, and more than half of that battle is taking place in the media. Our enemies are using media as their weapon of choice in warfare, to delegitimize, to undermine, to erode our own sense of conviction to Israel around the world. If we lose sight of that as their central goal, we will lose the ability to give it the resources and the means to respond. There is no iron dome in the communication sphere right now. We need to get to it as much as we needed to build a health service, as much as we needed to reforest the state of Israel. It is central, but because it's slightly ethereal, it's not so easy for people to get their head around just how important it is. So I want to say thank you to you for being one of our small community of growing media missile defense efforts. Together we can make a difference, and one person alone can't make a difference, but thousands of us united can.
Thank you very much.